Welcome, everybody. My name is Nisha Sajnani. I'm the director of the program in drama therapy at NYU. And it's a pleasure to co host this panel with Peter Jampel from music therapy. I'll pass this over to him in just a moment. And my two colleagues in art therapy and music therapy, Susan Feiner and Mia de Bethune. We're going to be together for an hour, and we look forward to sharing with you stories of creative arts therapists creating wonderful opportunities for reflection, perspective taking, and expression over the course of this pandemic so far. And Peter will be sharing more with you about how this all came together. But for now, I'll just invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. Maybe let us know where you're joining from. Let us know your specialization if you wish. It's wonderful to have a joint opportunity here across some of the arts therapies. I'll also ask you to hold your questions throughout the presentation to the end. We will have opportunity for a bit of Q&A together. And finally, just a bit of Zoom housekeeping. Of course, please be mindful of muting your microphone when not speaking, and that will help us try to stay as focused as we can. You can toggle over the top button up at the top right. If you're on a laptop or a desktop, you'll see a view button, and you can select gallery view or speaker view for when we get to the panel discussion portion. You won't need to worry about that so much when we're presenting. Thank you all again, and I'll pass this over to my colleague, Peter.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to talk for a second about how this all started. I had a conversation with the director of the Unlonely Project, and their most recent component of that has been Stuck at Home Together. And his name is Jeremy Nobel. And Jeremy and I talked about how in the best of times, the isolation of modern life has created a need for understanding how the creative arts can play a meaningful role in everyday life. But now, in the time of COVID-19 and the effects that the pandemic has had on people's lives, it's even more important than ever that we have meaningful creative outlets and opportunities. And one aspect of that is that there has been a tremendous amount of online art making, music making, creative activities across all of the creative arts modalities. And that is a way of surviving. But today's panel discussion will not only take that reality of the existential role of music, art, drama in our lives, but take a look at how we can all bring through the creative arts therapies another dimension to the role of the arts. And that is how we can learn different ways of engaging more meaningfully and more frequently with creative arts activities. And that will be part of our panel's presentation, how people in their everyday lives can find a way to engage creatively. But more specifically, as creative arts therapists, we have provided in the pandemic services to our colleagues and ways of understanding how the arts have brought resiliency and stress reduction to the very, very difficult experiences that they have had in providing health services to their clients and patients. And the last aspect of this panel discussion will be how the pandemic has forced us to adapt to the demands of Zoom and other online services in providing access to creative arts therapy services for those who were suddenly cut off. So that's the parameters of what we'll be presenting today. And before I hand it over to my colleagues, just one function I'd like to draw your attention to in terms of questions and responses and comments. Please use the chat function to direct your questions. I will be reviewing those chat questions. You may ask them to a specific panel member, or you may ask it across the board for multiple perspectives. And I will read your question to the panel members in terms of time expediency. So, looking forward to hearing your thoughts and comments.
So should I jump in, Nisha, or are you going to
Yes, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Mia. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and let's begin.
Okay, thank you so much, Nisha. I'm so excited to be presenting here. And I just want you to know, if you hear a little kitten in the background, I have a tiny kitten who's not very happy that I locked her in another room. So that's just letting you know. But I'm Mia DeBethune, and I'm welcome everybody. I'm so excited so many people are here. I represent the Steinhardt School Art Therapy Program, and I am the internship coordinator for the program, as well as an adjunct instructor. And first of all, I just want to thank Professors Sajnani and Yampel for organizing this morning exhibition. It's just really a reward after being involved in this project to be able to share it with everyone. And I also want to thank Professors Yampel and Acosta for inviting me to be involved in the Unlonely Project, as well as Dr. Nobel, because I think that this project really enriched my life at a time when we were all so stressed, and it gave me such meaning and purpose to be able to focus my energies on exploring what my colleagues were doing. I want to acknowledge my assistant and intern, Kyle McKean, who's a second-year art therapy student in our program. He helped me really compile stories over the summer, so thank you, Kyle. So Nisha, if you could just advance first, thank you. So when the pandemic hit in March, overnight in our department, there were 30 students who all of a sudden were ripped away from really fragile, vulnerable clients. And their internships, most of them, a lot of hospital sites and other sites said, we need your keys back. We need those keys. We need other people to be working. It's not safe for you to be here. And there was really no goodbye. They didn't have a chance to say goodbye, and they were very traumatized, as well as their clients. We were all traumatized. And half of them were worried too about, do I have the hours to graduate? They were really anxious. What's happening? What's happening to my internship? What's happening to my status as a student here and a new hopefully a new graduate? In addition, I myself had 4 or 5 family members who are frontline medical workers, infectious disease doctors, nurses, and then many friends working in ERs, particularly in the Bronx, and they were scared. I had one family member come to Zoom meetings, family Zoom meetings, crying because she was concerned not just for her clients, but for her colleagues, and that they weren't, as she put it, weren't going to make it. So, some of you are going to be familiar, many of us, with this story. And my response to trauma in that moment was to become manic and become busy. What can I do? How can I fix it? Right? So I thought about mask making. There weren't enough. And I have a sewing machine. It's right behind me, actually. And I thought, what if I can get masks made and get my students involved with making masks? Because that would give them meaningful activity to do while they themselves were isolated, many of them alone in apartments, and feeling powerless. So it would give them something to do. So because of my job as the internship coordinator, I had many contacts with art therapy supervisors, and I reached out and I said, do you need masks? And the response was just overwhelmingly yes. Some of them were trying to do it themselves on their units with sewing machines. And so what I did was I reached out in the NYU community, our alumni community, and the art therapy community in general, and organized about 40 students, recent grads, alumni, and many allies within the therapy world and outside of it, artists who knew how to sew. And we began producing face masks as well as face shields, which you see here on Denali Fernandez from the Elmhurst ER. But we supplied about 30 agencies, hospitals, nursing homes, residential treatment programs, various, and 2,000 pieces of PPE between mid-March and June were created by our group. Elmhurst Hospital, Montefiore, Harlem, North Central Bronx, to name a few, were among some of the hardest hit hospitals during the April surge. And one of my friends, an ER nurse, who initially said to me, no, we don't want your masks. They're not CDC reg. We don't want anything. I don't know about these shields. I made a shield. It was the first batch of shields I made. And my sister-in-law actually is an infectious disease doctor in Boston, and she told me about the shields and how to make them. She said, masks are great, but if you really want to help, make these shields. So I gave this to my friend, and I get a Facebook post from her, said, 2 weeks later, said, this shield has become my foundation garment when I suit up every day. And that was it. That, for me, went a long way to easing my own grief and anxiety when we were all feeling so overwhelmed. It really made me feel like I'm doing something. So then I was asked to be involved, and you can move forward. So there we have Mount Sinai, I think, that's in Elmhurst, and there's just one example of the hundreds of masks that we produced, and we got many thank yous from people, and you can move forward. One of the things that we also did, and I was involved, and that's me sewing, is we made full scrub suits for art therapists who we heard, particularly Elmhurst Behavioral Health, they were not considered frontline, so they didn't get the same kind of full PPE coverage. And I said, do you need scrubs? And the answer was yes. So we did do a full line of scrubs for particularly Elmhurst and for a few others. And they were made out of sheets because we got tons and tons of donations of sheets. And I kind of call it a Project Runway moment, the scrubs, sheets to scrub project. And that was a lot of fun to do that, to take the flowered sheets and the green sheets and mix it up. So that was very enjoyable. And then you can forward. So by May, the surge had sort of been petering out. The numbers were getting lower. And we, as a group, we had several meetings. We were like, do we keep doing this? Is this sustainable? We had raised $4,000 through a GoFundMe just to support mailing things to people, because we had sewers in other states. We had a sewer out in Arizona, we have sewers in Massachusetts, mostly in the tri-state area. And there was a lot of mailing going on. And when we asked this question, the answer became obvious. It was really, there were many people around the country where all of a sudden the COVID numbers were spiking. And a lot of these were very vulnerable populations, like the Navajo tribal nation of the Navajos in Tuba City, and the Blackfeet Nation, as you see the picture here, at Hopa Mountain in Montana. We also knew that upstate farm workers who were supplying our table with food, they didn't have masks. They weren't getting them, and they lived sometimes in very crowded situations. Prisoners, upstate Bedford Prison and others, domestic violence shelters, food pantries, and these are places where they have to have contact, interface with people who really had a need. People didn't have food. Domestic violence was on the rise because of all the conditions. So we turned our attention in that direction. And we just recently supplied masks to California farm workers who were near fires and yet didn't have protection. So to date, we have raised $4,000 for the GoFundMe and made up as much as 4,000 items, including just 1,700 since August. There's a recent order for 400 masks for Bedford Women's Prison because they went through the ones we made them. And I have to acknowledge longtime activist Nancy Hafner, and thank her for expanding our outreach nationally, because she really had the context with prison populations, with the farm workers, and reached out then to the tribal nations. And she took over leadership because I started a PhD program in June, and it just became impossible for me to sew or organize anymore. And I also really want to acknowledge Vivian Felix of the Experiential Learning Department, because she helped me be organized. She shared her expertise with me in terms of if we were going to fundraise, and just all around moral support all spring and summer. So I really am grateful for that. So you can advance, Nisha. Thank you. So because of the mask project, I became aware of art therapists who were constricted really to be frontline workers, and collecting their stories for the Unlonely Project. And this was really exciting research for me. Jackie Tassiello works for hematology oncology at New York Presbyterian Komansky Children's Center. And during the surge, her unit was shut down. So she was no longer seeing children because it was turned into a COVID hospital. And Jackie's job then became supporting the COVID medical teams in a way, any way they needed. It meant that she was helping families speak to loved ones over iPads if they were sick and dying. She was bringing food in a rolling cart that you see here, actually, of snacks and water to make sure that the medical teams were fed and hydrated, because they were just working round the clock. Jackie also filled the halls of the hospital and the cart here, as you can see, with inspirational art, reminding them how important their work was. And many of the medical workers noted how important it was that they could see this when they were facing down death every day. And you can advance. And here you see the walkway where she made the Heroes Work Here sign. And Jackie also covered the sidewalks with all sorts of artwork. And I didn't have room to show you all, that there are many images, just so that these heroes could walk into the building and be acknowledged when they were really putting their lives at risk. So I wanted to acknowledge the art therapists who were also doing that and not expecting to do that. So you can advance, Nisha, thank you. On social media, in addition, numerous outlets sprang up in the art therapy community and the art world in general to support people's needs to create images that express the anxiety, terror, and unspeakable horrors and deprivations of the surge during March and April. Shannon Bradley is an art therapist who began making art herself, and that's one of her images. And she also began offering art therapy groups online to anyone who needed support, whether it was other art therapists or people just in need of that kind of congregation and community and therapy. You can advance. So the Art of the Isolation was started by Cole Giordano, who's a Brooklyn photographer, and the son of actually a colleague of mine in a gallery I belong to. And it's just a venue. He came up with the notion that people needed to make art and were making art, and this is a venue for what he called the Art of the Isolation. So here you see an image by Kenneth Baker from Brooklyn, and then you can advance. And another one for Domenica Bucalo. All right, so you can advance. And then another thing that began happening was a lot of offerings for families, because families were isolating, sheltering at home, and homeschooling. And Karen Sachs is an art therapist colleague of mine who began making free YouTube videos that were introducing families to simple mindfulness-based art making. It wasn't art therapy per se, it was really art as therapy, but she just was offering ways to explore emotions and stress at a really difficult time in simple activities. And Karen has a very soothing manner and presence, and she's made numbers. So you can see her YouTube link there. I wasn't going to show a video today, but you can look her up, and it's very available. In this one, she talks not just about isolation, but racism and how to explore that with children. So this was made after the riots and the awful deaths of people of color that we've been experiencing. So you can forward. And here I'm featuring the Sauery Arts New York City, which is a wonderful not-for-profit that brings weaving to people of all levels of ability with adaptable looms. And I want to acknowledge Rhea Hawks, who is here, who is the board of directors, chairman of the board and the director of this wonderful group, which I'm involved with. In March, they just sprang into action and created this circle weaving project, simple instructions, and made packets, which they gave to their clients and then any family that might need it for while they were sheltering at home. And you can move forward. And so this is the most unusual of collaborations because it was, you know, sort of very out of the box, and is in home here at Steinhardt, the Creative Kitchen Cookbook. This was led by Professors Mary Grace Berberian of art therapy and Lisa Sasson of nutrition, where they brought together students in art therapy, nutrition, and the fine arts to collaborate on a mindfulness-based cookbook for New York City families who are sheltering at home through the Department of Education and enduring the incredible stresses of homeschooling kids. So the cookbook is free. And there'll be a link for downloading, which I can get to you, but it is all healthy recipes. And in addition to the recipes, there are activities that kind of mirror the recipes and talk about, you know, things that you can do to help you explore emotions and stress during this time and help families together. So these are just 2 quotes. I'll read them. I believe food is an important source of comfort and routine for many people, and that these things were significantly impacted by the recent events. And this is from Carrara, one of our recent art therapy graduates. If this cookbook can ease pressure and provide a simple guide to staying healthy in the pandemic, then I will be so proud and honored to have produced a bit of relief. And that's from Lucy, who's a nutrition student. And you can advance. And so there's the cover of the cookbook. And you can advance. And this is an example of one of the recipes, baked oatmeal cups. And then in the box, it's a little hard to read. They talk about leavening, baking powder or baking soda, and how that brings a little bit of lightness into the recipe and how you can bring lightness into your life. So it's very metaphoric. And then on the facing page, there's an example of an art therapy prompt, which would be polarity drawings. This is from Shirley Riley, one of the kind of seminal art therapists in our field. And polarity drawings, you kind of look at, this is the good side of something, this is the bad, and sort of it's helping you think out things and work through emotions. And you can advance. And this one I think is my favorite, the veggie scramble. And they talk a little bit about the veggie scramble. And then on the other side, you have the feeling scramble, and working with the mixed emotions and all the varied feelings that came up for kids during this time and for families where there was a lot of stress. So that's really it from me today. And I really thank you for listening. And I'd like to pass over, turn things over to my colleague, Susan Feiner, in the music therapy department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia, for such a fantastic presentation. Thank you to the World Health Organization for hosting this webinar, and thank you, Nisha and Peter, for inviting my participation. When the pandemic hit, music therapists had to change how they worked and often who they worked with as they responded to the needs of their clients and the communities surrounding them. For example, next slide, please. Frontline hospital staff were without the community and support needed during this time of stress and crisis. Many spoke of their fear and anxiety and their unimaginable loneliness. So music therapists shifted their work to provide a range of services to hospital staff, including in-person sessions, relaxation and coping skill videos, sound baths, and musical wellness breaks. They brought environmental music therapy to units, tailoring live music to requests such as uplifting music, music to soothe, energize, or provide a moment to breathe. What you're looking at now is the photo of the Cohen Children's Medical Center, Northwell Hospital on Long Island, where you see music therapist Shauna Vernisi and Carly Caprioli providing a time for staff to gather as a community and sing. Participants' song choices reflect their needs as they progress through the phases of the pandemic. strength, collaboration, hope, love, pride, community. These community sings became weekly scheduled meetings called positivity parades with the underlying theme of we are all here together. The following example, next slide, please. You will see an excerpt from a video made by Nir Sadovnik, a music therapy supervisor at Woodhull. Nir decided to make a recording of Bill Withers' Lean on Me as a musical message of support for first responders. Fellow staff eagerly joined in as Nir recorded individual tracks to assemble into a finished product. Enthusiasm, camaraderie, and lifted spirits were so great as a result of the music making that Nir decided to expand participation to include staff from every discipline, including nursing, social work, psychiatrists, housekeeping, administration, etc. He walked through the hallways with his laptop and his phone as camera and recorder, meeting with staff, listening to their feelings and concerns, and encouraging to contribute. Reaching out and engaging each participant provided a way for the staff to express their pain while feeling connected. Joining in the music brought out feelings of togetherness and hope. Some reported worry that their singing or dancing would be seen as rejoicing during the pandemic. Processing together, it became clear that they were expressing the joy of serving, as well as breaking free of the confines of loneliness. Please play the video.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
This is just one example of work in hospitals and with frontline workers. But I'm going to move on now to another example. Nisha, if you could change the slide. With the pandemic, diverse and special needs populations were suddenly isolated at home. Many depended upon music therapy to help them manage the everyday challenges in life before the pandemic hit. How are they to cope now with this added crisis and continuing isolation? In response, music therapists shifted to work remotely with a variety of schools, after schools, clinics, and private practices, hospital outpatient and community music therapy settings as well. They immediately set up remote connections for sessions via technology where possible. They had to find new ways of playing together because of time lags and sound getting in and out when multiple voices or instruments were played, and this was a tremendous challenge. The following is a brief excerpt of a session from the Nordhoff Robbins Center for Music Therapy in New York City. The therapist, Alan Turry, co-therapist, music therapy intern Lingxi Wang, and Danny are each connecting remotely via Zoom from their own homes. And I quote Alan Turry, "As the lockdown has continued, Danny has become more and more confused and anxious. He was expecting the disruption to be temporary and struggles to accept that the situation is lasting longer than he understood it would, with no clear end in sight. Plans he was looking forward to are being canceled, and this is a tremendous disappointment." Okay, next slide, please. And you can play.
This pandemic is this pandemic just there has to be information about when this pandemic is over, because it can't be like that. It can't go on forever.
Right. Let's sing a song about that. Lingxi, let's do it.
Oh no, no. I'll just listen into your singing. I'm not in the mood for singing I'm not in the mood for my singing at all.
Understood. We can sing to you.
Yes, go ahead and sing to me.
Okay.
I think Danny's words speak for many of us during this time. As Lynchy improvised music and sang to reflect Danny's feelings, he was able to identify and speak of his deep sadness. And to further express this sadness, he requested songs, Beatles songs, In My Life, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, expressing, now this is the sadness. These are sad songs. This is what I feel. And eventually engaged in singing The Fool on the Hill. So even while remote, Danny is able to seek close connection. And I quote Alan again, who says, with support, he is able to make choices in the session that help him to work on and alleviate some of the pain he is experiencing due to lockdown. Next slide, please. Now I'll present as my last example a program for military veterans called Healing Our Heroes. The program started in 2013 by the Music Therapy Institute at the Music Conservatory of Westchester. Julie Sherwood and Tina Brescher are the music therapists. The transition to working remotely had the surprise benefits of allowing veterans earlier access and increased attendance. More veterans could have access and join while not limited by distance, pain, or illness. The group's focus before the pandemic was building community and connection, as well as building self-care resources for coping with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. But during the pandemic, Julie described how these sessions also became a way of processing the difficult feelings participants were having about the pandemic, social and racial issues, hurricanes, wildflowers, I wish wildflowers, wildfires, and the ever-evolving challenging events occurring during this time. Each session also included a musical ritual for grieving participants' numerous losses. Over time, this ritual evolved to not only honor their losses, but became a time to celebrate life, strength, hope, and community. Next slide, please. This next video is of the same group on another day. Julie has developed a way for them to play together with a percussion track she created, especially for them, where they could connect improvising together. They each have a turn to solo. I have selected a very small sample for you. Don't worry about catching the words. I will repeat them after we see the video. Play the video, please.
We have each other. Music is our life. It has saved our lives, and we know how to move as one.
Here are her words. Music in our soul. Music, music, heal the world. We have seen the world. We are one. Drive on as one. We have each other's back. We have each other. Music is our light. It has saved our lives, and we know how to move as one. In the group discussion after this improvisation, another member of the group said, the only way you find the peace is to make music yourself, because music's the best way. Music is life. So thank you. We've seen in these examples how music therapy, even through telehealth, is able to access the power of music to maintain crucial connection during this time of pandemic. Thank you. And I will pass on to Misha.
Thank you so much, Susan. These are really tremendous examples from both you and Mia, and there's so much that we can relate to in drama therapy. Certainly that shift, students needing to very quickly move from in-person internships into teledrama therapy without knowing necessarily what that involved or what that was, really being caught in a moment of needing to innovate very quickly to meet the needs of who they were charged with caring for. And of course, all of us and those of you out there who are in a role of teaching, you know that adaptation struggle well as well. So drama therapy, as some of you know, is the intentional use of theater-based processes such as the use of improvisation or ritual, myths, pretend play, puppetry, role play, mask making, costuming, and performance, to name a few, to support health promotion and treatment in the context of psychotherapy, rehabilitation, and social well-being. And since the onset of the pandemic, drama therapists have offered, as our colleagues in art and music therapy, and certainly dance movement therapy and poetry therapy and the other arts therapies, they've provided pathways to expression, reflection, and connection. I've organized these examples as a set of roles that drama therapists are familiar with and have played in their practice. And I'll begin here with the drama therapist as ritual maker. What you're looking at is the Creative Arts Therapy team, or members of the Creative Arts Therapies team at the Health and Hospital Kings County. Creative Arts Therapy has a long history with the staff wellness initiatives at New York City's health and hospitals, and specifically here in Kings County. In 2013, Kings County developed a program, actually the whole health and hospitals program developed a program called Helping Healers Heal, HHH, a peer-led employee wellness program to provide mental health support and debriefing after traumatic events. The HHH team consists of 15 licensed creative arts therapists who provide creative arts therapy to medical colleagues each week. Of course, over the course of this pandemic, this team of creative arts therapists created several pathways for frontline staff to acknowledge and express their feelings of distress about the impact of the virus. And this included the demarcation of a special space, a demarcated space for mourning in which frontline staff could contemplate their experience of COVID-19 and the many losses that they had witnessed, including the loss of their own colleagues. And like the stage, this room set apart for grief in this case created an invitation to experience one's feelings more fully while in the presence of the care team. And drama therapists, together with arts therapists on the team, created many other opportunities pictured here to begin to translate difficult and often traumatic memory into narrative memory, into story form, and to provide avenues for direct expression. Also at Kings County Hospital is a wonderful initiative led by Dana Trottier, who's the supervisor at Kings and also faculty in our drama therapy program at NYU. He guided and continues to supervise the Hero and Unmasking workshop program, which is currently being led actually by two NYU drama therapy interns, Elena Offerman and Amanda Rothman, under Dana's supervision. And HERO in this case stands for Helping Essential Workers Reclaim Roles Online. And it's a way for healthcare providers to unpack the role of hero that they have been cast in throughout this pandemic and claim other roles that they may wish to play. In this image here, you're seeing drama therapist as playwright. So searching for a clear way to communicate with children about situations even adults find difficult to comprehend is challenging. And here we have drama therapist Stephanie Omans, who's the founder of No White Lies. She's helping adults here find the words to help children find their way in overwhelming and frightening circumstances. In the initial days of the pandemic and lockdown in the US, Stephanie wrote a story entitled Truth Telling to Kids During a Global Pandemic about COVID-19 as a tool for parents to use to share the story of what was happening with the virus in language that a child could understand and with pictures that they might be able to relate to. She also created an animated video which was translated into Chinese and Taiwanese, and parents have shared that they have found the video very informative and that reading the story with their children gave families a place for discussion and opportunities for their children to ask questions. And here we have drama therapist as costume designer. Drama therapists understand that a person's personality can be understood as a compilation of roles. And amidst the pandemic, it's easy to limit one's roles or to lose touch with one's own creative self. The Closet Costume Challenge was created by drama therapist Adam Stevens, who works with the Cook School and Institute in New York City for neurodiverse students. Adam created the Costume Closet Challenge to foster connection and lift spirits while meeting students online. So in this short video that he sent to students, Adam, along with 2 drama therapy interns who are now graduates, who you see here, Jade Johnson and Mary Morris, demonstrate how everyday items of clothing from their own closets could help them step into different roles or different parts of themselves. 75 students of the Cook School and Institute participated and said that the Costume Closet Challenge created a way for them to access inside roles like their internal superhero or their powerful one or their artist. It's an example of playful teledrama therapy with school-age students and clients, and has proven to raise students' experiences of their own resourcefulness by offering a way to engage in self-expression, creativity, and fun. And I'm just going to play a moment of the invitation.
Hey everybody, guess what? It's time for drama therapy with Mr. Stevens.
Whoops. Sorry about that. All of the other videos work perfectly except this one.
Hey everybody, guess what? It's time for drama therapy.
Be yourself, because that's what really matters, right? And that's what we're really interested in seeing. All right, it's time for the Costume Closet Challenge. I'm going to offer you some examples to see how I show up and how I express myself, and I can't wait to see how you express yourself. Let's go in the closet, everybody. Are you ready? Let's do it. Oh, hey, this is my sporty outfit. It's super fun, it's easy to move in, and I like to exercise in it. Everybody say, hey! Woo! Well, all right. Woo! This is my fabulous self. And even though I'm stuck inside, it feels really nice to get dressed up sometimes, because that makes me feel good. Well, what does it look like when you get dressed up? I can't wait to see. Everybody say, oh yeah. Ta-da! This is my creative self. I like to wear my unicorn onesie when I'm feeling creative and use my imagination to travel to faraway places. Isn't that so much fun? Giddy up, everybody.
That gives you an example. And, you know, if you were to receive a video like that, hopefully you'd feel some of your own playfulness rise up, and who knows, you may find yourself engaging in a little closet costume challenge a little later on. Finally, I'll share with you an example of drama therapist as actor and as witness. And in this project, which we led in May, so a couple months after we initially went into quote unquote lockdown, we began to ask ourselves, you know, along with the HERO Project, for example, who is helping the helpers? As the global pandemic has increasingly impacted providers' well-being in both physical and mental and spiritual ways, it's a question that has only grown in importance and will continue to grow, given the rates of depression and anxiety amongst first and second responders. For those who provide critical mental health services to patients, COVID-19 has generated a significant degree of stress and anxiety that they themselves experience. So recognizing the therapeutic benefits of performance for actors and for audiences, our team at NYU assembled a team of drama therapists to curate an online therapeutic theater gathering in which drama therapists and allied mental health providers, as well as other care providers, could share their experience. So from May 1st to 3rd, 350 care providers from 35 countries joined the gathering to exchange experiences, to bear witness to each other's stories, poetry, and songs that conveyed a sense of their own sense of disruption, complexity, and their hope for humanity. And I'm just going to play a very brief clip of a few moments of this performance.
We have a map of the universe for microbes. We have a map of a microbe for the universe. We have a grand master of chess made of electronic circuits. But above all, we have the ability to sort peas, to cup water in our hands, to seek the right screw under the sofa for hours.
COVID-19 is a hell of a beast. My sword is ready to slay. Shelter in place, exposure will cease, and we'll all come out ready to play. Oh, I create with a little help from my friends. I stay safe with a little help from my friends. I'm gonna play with a little help from my friends.
I'd like to ask you all to imagine yourself in the future when we've all emerged from this pandemic. And imagine that you decide you're going to sit down and write a personal memoir of your experience of this time. Please take a moment to write the title of your personal memoir. What will you name it?
And I'm going to ask you now to, in the chat box, write down the title of your memoir of this time. Imagine that we're on the other side of this pandemic, and we know the ripple effects will be felt forever. But on the other side of the infection crisis, we have the tools in place to manage it. What would the title of your memoir be? Just type it into the chat. I'll read out a few of them. Becoming a butterfly. Becoming stronger than I ever wanted to have to be. The whirlwind. People are the most important thing. Surrender, Dorothy. Rising up. Escape from New York. I can breathe again. It was a time. Rising up. Becoming present. Did we make it through? How did we make it through? Changed forever in ways I couldn't dream of. Resilience is the answer. Coco Chanel in the country. A battle between the world versus the monster. Change. Alone time together. I grew, I learned, I created. A new wave of meaning. What a time, right? Thank you. You can continue to write them, but I will pass this over to my colleagues Peter, Mia, and Susan to join us for a bit of Q&A. Over to you, Peter.
Okay. As I am awaiting your questions and your comments, I think it's clear to me how the multiple dimensions of the creative arts enable, promote, integrate, collaborate, and, explicate the depths and complexities of the responses to COVID-19, how they adapt to children, how they adapt to circumstance, how they address pain and despair, and joy and beauty. And, one of the reasons that I turned to the Creative Arts Therapy Consortium was to have these multiple perspectives and to appreciate that dimensionality in our creative lives allows us multiple opportunities for expression, and understanding that the multiplicity of ways in which we can express ourselves changes from moment to moment and over time. So, I really wanted to see it all together. I've heard these projects for months now, but seeing them as a panel really captures for me some of the depth and incredible variety of our work. So let me go to the chat room and see, after the wonderful personal memoirs of the pandemic, what questions and comments people have. So this is from Eric to everyone. Hello, I'm curious if people have come up with any creative solutions to the issue of time lag when synchronization is a concern in music and dance, etc. Great presentation. So since that seems to hit all of the modalities, let me open that up to comments from my 3 panel members. Go ahead, folks.
I'm happy to start. Music therapists were faced with this challenge very dramatically. Playing together became almost impossible using playing together in rhythm, playing together more than 2 instruments at one time. So this is a great question. I don't think there's a magic solution to it. I think we learned how to work around it. That excerpt that I showed you with the veterans, a music therapist made a tape that she devised, really basic, coming out of the music that she had already done with this group, that allowed space. And she made this tape and played it, and then everyone could play along with it and have turns to solo so they could be heard and it wouldn't be broken up going back and forth. So learning, that was one technique. Another technique I know is used of it being more call and response, or not feeling rigid about where the beat happens. And I think some people, and here's where I'm totally ignorant, have devised more complicated structures with how to siphon sound in and around and then make them come together more closely when produced elsewhere. But I don't think it's a spontaneous process that all has to get channeled. So that's a quick answer.
Okay. Other panelists care to take a shot at that?
I can respond. I mean, it's not such a concern with art therapy because you're not dealing with sound or video, you're dealing with imagery. I do use the whiteboard on Zoom a lot with clients, so I do use technology, but I'm thinking really about the transition for our students, and we had a few out of the 30, maybe 6 were able to continue with teletherapy. And as Nisha mentioned, it was quite a transition, seat of the pants transition. And what do you do with a client? And you may have had a relationship with them prior in person, but what do you do with them all of a sudden if you're in your box and they're in their box? How do you bridge that? So there was a lot of discussion and ways of looking at it, and I don't think there's a best practices. You know, we're trying to think about best practices. There are best practices for teletherapy, but not for art therapy really. So there's a lot of discussion in our world about what do you do? How do you do? And I think that's been my learning curve as well since March, with all of my clients are online or by telephone. And I think that there's a lot of innovating with what do they have in their kitchen? They don't have paint. Do they have food coloring? They don't have glue. Do they have flour, right? And this sort of inventiveness that families have had to support their children who might come online. And, you know, and what I've learned too is that in group, even with my students, that you can do things together with the mic open, say ripping paper, where you hear each other, or you hear each other drawing and painting, and then you create that we space of being together, and then you can hold up your art. But it's quite a learning curve of how do you reach through. And I mentioned this the other night with at Supervisors Now. It's my favorite with a new child client. I'm having a lot of them. Is I take I call it the COVID bat. It's a little Beanie Baby bat. I don't tell them it's a COVID bat, but I put it up and say, my friend needs a house. Do you have a friend that needs a house? And then we build houses together. Usually there's a box sitting, and then they can paint the box or color the box. But it's this becoming creative over this lag of what's the distance between us and trying to make that distance closer. So it's sort of a different answer to that question, but I hope it's helpful.
I think in terms of in drama therapy, there are some platforms, different platforms that colleagues are experimenting with that allow for dramatic role-playing games to take place online that are far more sophisticated, that pre-existed the pandemic, that people are exploring in the context of therapy, and of course within the context of a closed space, a private space. And it's opened up a lot with regards to what we can do technologically with, of course, green screens and the kinds of filters that are available here. But we're still sort of in the beginning for a lot of us in this exploration. I do see other responses, Peter, coming through.
Yes.
About Jam Kazan and so on.
Yeah, I think in terms of our time constraints, I would like to just summarize some of these comments and then open that up in terms of your own thoughts and perhaps future discussions together. I don't want to needlessly jam together some very interesting and complex questions. One theme of these questions has to do with providing access to services for people who are underserved and whom access is an issue in terms of computer access. And so I think that is both a question in terms of modality specific things like instruments and time lags for music therapists, but also access and maximizing utilization of services. There are other themes here that would be more complex to summarize, but I do think in terms of our time constraints, read the chat boxes. This is all being recorded, so a lot of this will be archived for further review. So sorry about the time limitations, but Nisha, I'd like to turn the concluding section over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Peter and Mia and Susan, and thank you all for joining us and participating in the conversation over chat and briefly here at the end. There really is so much to talk about, and clearly we need more spaces to continue to reflect on what exactly has happened in the creative arts therapies and how has the pandemic shifted our field and shifted the work that we do in the various contexts that were presented here. So I imagine that we will have opportunities like this again, organized by some of you joining or perhaps by this team here. So thank you again. This video will be edited and organized in a way that can be shared. And please stay in touch with the NYU Creative Arts Therapies Consortium for similar events and opportunities like these. Thank you all.